Part 36. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuchi. Chapter 351. In front of the talent building. In fact, the reason why Xiao Yuxuan used soft and hard means to follow Zhang Fengjai to the talent building was because of her own selfishness. First, she wanted to get a chance to be alone with Zhang Fengjai, and it would be best if some ambiguity could happen during the process of getting along, so as to increase the feelings between them. Second, she also wanted to take a look at the job fair in advance to see if there were any jobs suitable for music majors, so that she could be mentally prepared to find a job after graduation next year. But when she saw the sea of job seekers in front of her, her face suddenly showed an extremely shocked look. Fortunately, Zhang Fengjai, who no longer needed to worry about work, was also shocked by the scene in front of him, but he quickly regained his calm and comforted Xiao Yuxuan. "Yuxuan, you don't have to worry about work. I have asked Brother Zhu, Sister Litsi, Mr. Shen and Teacher Zhuang in advance to help arrange a job that suits your heart." "Yes, I want to solve the work myself." Xiao Yuxuan shook her head and refused. Although she had clearly expressed her willingness to be a lover in front of Zhang Fengjai on the day her sister died, which girl doesn't want to be favored by a man alone, and which girl is willing to share a man with other women? Moreover, even if she has to share Zhang Fengjai with other women in the end, she still wants to get more companionship and more opportunities to be pampered. So, how can she get more companionship and pampering? Only by having her own career can she become more independent, more charming, and have more advantages in attracting Zhang Fengjai's attention. Therefore, facing his well-intentioned arrangement, Xiao Yuxuan refused without hesitation. "Why?" Zhang Fengjai asked puzzledly. "After all, with the connections and abilities of Zhu Zhenjun, Shen Loxi, and Zhuang Jian, they can completely arrange a comfortable and high-paying job for Xiao Yuxuan, and she doesn't need to bother looking for a job everywhere. Keep it secret for now." Xiao Yuxuan could only refuse to give an explanation by playing tricks because of her selfish thoughts that were neither convenient to reveal nor too embarrassing to confess. In response, Zhang Guyu just shrugged and did not continue to ask, and then looked for the security uncle who invited him to the job fair among the dozen security guards responsible for maintaining order. However, after searching back and forth 3 times, he still could not find the figure of the security uncle, which made him frown while planning to mobilize the spiritual power of Danshan to open the sky eye and find the unique breath of the security uncle. But at this moment, he suddenly heard the enthusiastic greeting of the security uncle in his ears. "Zhang Xiao, I'm here." Tracing the source of the greeting, Zhang Fengjai immediately saw the security uncle waving his hand in front of the fence on the north side of the building with a relieved smile on his face. "Yuxuan, follow me." After greeting Xiao Yuxuan, Zhang Fengjai took her through the dark crowd and came to the security uncle, and then introduced Xiao Yuxuan. "Yuxuan, this uncle is a cultivator like me, and he invited me to this job fair." "Uncle, hello, my name is Xiao Yuxuan, and I am Yezi's good friend." Xiao Yuxuan's arrogant and indifferent temperament is just a means for her to protect herself and avoid being hurt. If it is a familiar friend, or a friend of her beloved, then she will remove her psychological defense and show good upbringing. What's more, the security uncle in front of her is a strong man with powerful abilities like her beloved. So, Xiao Yuxuan hurriedly saluted enthusiastically and took the initiative to introduce herself. "You are cold on the outside but warm on the inside, and you are generous and decent in your dealings. Zhang Xiao is lucky to meet such an outstanding friend." The security uncle first praised Xiao Yuxuan strongly, and then deliberately emphasized the word friend and teased. In response, Zhang Fengjai just laughed twice with pride, and Xiao Yuxuan lowered her head with a blushing face, and a sweet feeling emerged in her heart. "Young friend Zhang, Miss Yuxuan, follow me first." The security uncle who was maintaining order at the scene quickly signaled after seeing the job seekers entering the venue one after another. Then, under his leadership, Zhang Fengjai and Xiao Yuxuan entered the building directly through the fire escape, and then came to the recruitment site on the second floor. "Yezi, I want to take a look myself." When she saw that nearly 100 recruitment booths on the second floor were all hung with a recruitment information poster, Xiao Yuxuan, who was eager to adapt to the job search experience in advance, looked at him with a look of desire in her eyes. "Go. But be careful." After nodding in agreement with Xiao Yuxuan's request, Zhang Fengjai carefully reminded her. "Got it?" After nodding in response, Xiao Yuxuan excitedly walked towards the recruitment units with posters. Stunning appearance, perfect figure, and long and beautiful legs. Looking at Xiao Yuxuan walking over, some men in charge of recruitment around her immediately became excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood, and some women also flashed envy, jealousy, and defensive looks in their eyes. However, when they felt Xiao Yuxuan's aloof and cold temperament, they felt ashamed and didn't dare to take the initiative to talk to her. This also made Zhang Fengjai completely relieved and turned to the security uncle and asked, "Uncle, what is the meaning of inviting me to participate in such a job fair?" "Zhang Xiao, please come this way." Without answering Zhang Fengjai's question, the security uncle took him to the iron fence on the second floor, and then pointed at the job seekers who kept pouring into the lobby on the first floor, and pointed at the recruiters sitting in front of the booths and reminded them, "Zhang Xiao, pay close attention to the actions of those people and observe their status carefully." Although he didn't quite understand the security uncle's intention, he knew that the other party would not deliberately harm him, so Zhang Fengjai listened to his reminder and carefully observed the performance of the recruiters and job seekers. Because it is a large-scale recruitment fair of comprehensive nature, the positions involved in the recruitment of enterprises are also relatively comprehensive. Among them, there are both high-paid management positions such as managers and supervisors, and low-paid service positions such as security guards and cleaners, as well as technical positions with average salaries. But more jobs still test personal ability, but there are also sales positions that are a little deceptive. After all, with a base salary that is not as good as that of security guards and cleaners, and a high salary commission that is higher than that of managers and supervisors, the temptation is too strong, and there are too many tricks to cheat people. It is precisely because of the comprehensiveness of the job positions and the free job-seeking environment that it attracts job seekers of different levels, genders, and ages to come and look for jobs. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 352. Talent Building. The middle-aged job seekers with a hint of arrogance on their faces did not even stop to look at the technical and service jobs, and went straight to the management positions with higher salaries. The young job seekers with a hint of fatigue on their faces stayed in front of the technical booths, either frowning, nodding, or smiling to discuss salary and working environment issues with the employers. The middle-aged and elderly job seekers with a hint of inferiority and humility on their faces stayed in front of the service booths, either cautiously, or nodding and bowing to ask about salary and benefits. The young job seekers with a hint of immaturity and excitement on their faces, who were obviously just graduated, went to interview all the jobs like headless flies. As the saying goes, recruitment is a small stage, life is a big stage. Although it was just an ordinary job fair, the different performances of each job seeker made Zhang Fengjai truly experience the world and the impermanence of fate. Looking at the vigorous young people, he felt a fearless momentum. Looking at the arrogant middle-aged man, he felt a calmness of planning and strategizing. Looking at the young people without fighting spirit, he felt a tranquility of being content with what he has. Looking at the timid middle-aged and elderly people, he felt an inexplicable sadness. The mixed feelings in his heart made him slowly understand the meaning of karma, and finally understood the real intention of the security uncle to invite him to the job fair. As his understanding of karma became deeper and deeper, a clear and lively aura gradually emerged from him. When the security uncle felt the clear and lively aura gradually emerging from Zhang Fengjai, he was extremely shocked and sighed with envy in his eyes. "You are really worthy of being the blood relative of Senior Wuxin." You have realized the various aspects of life in the world so quickly and entered the state of enlightenment. Then, he took out a magic talisman from his sleeve and used his spiritual power to drive the magic talisman to form an illusion that enveloped Zhang Fengjai, so as to prevent job seekers on the scene from disturbing him. Afterwards, he continued to perform his duties, paying attention to Zhang Fengjai's enlightenment while maintaining order on the scene to ensure that the last job fair in the talent building could end smoothly. As the aura of Kongming and Lingdong became stronger and stronger, 5 crisp shattering sounds suddenly came from Zhang Fengjai's sleeves. Pa! Along with the crisp shattering sound, a momentum of realm breakthrough quickly emerged from him. Fortunately, with the cover of the top illusion, the momentum formed by the realm breakthrough did not attract the attention of job seekers and staff on the scene. Of course, except for the security uncle who had been paying attention to him. After seeing Zhang Fengjai successfully advance to the 9th level of qi condensation, he still did not get out of the state of enlightenment. The security uncle's heart suddenly surged with shock like a storm, and the envy in his eyes was instantly replaced by jealousy. If he also had Zhang Fengjai's talent and qualifications, then the state of enlightenment he had experienced would not last only 5 minutes, and ultimately only assist in advancing to a small realm. However, despite his envy and jealousy, he was truly happy for Zhang Fengjai's opportunity to achieve a long-term state of enlightenment. Because 40 years ago, Taoist Wuxin had helped his family resolve a crisis of extinction. Although he wanted to repay Taoist Wuxin, the huge difference in strength between them left him no chance to repay him. Therefore, he could only give the opportunity to repay Zhang Fengjai, who was closely related to Taoist Wuxin. After withdrawing his attention from Zhang Fengjai, the security uncle continued to maintain order on the scene with a gentle smile on his face, and from time to time guided job seekers who wanted to approach Zhang Fengjai to leave. 10 minutes later, when he felt that the clear and lively aura emerging from Zhang Fengjai began to gradually decrease, the security uncle secretly breathed a sigh of relief and completely withdrew his attention. But at this moment, a crisp and loud slapping sound suddenly rang out in the noisy scene. Pa! Accompanied by a slap in the face that was enough to suppress all the chaotic sounds at the scene, everyone's eyes were cast towards the middle of the recruitment venue. When the security guard saw Xiao Yuxuan, whose face was as cold as dew, glaring at a scoundrel in front of him, he couldn't help but frown. "Stinky woman, you dare to hit me!" Reaching out to cover the cheek that had just been slapped, the yellow-haired young man threatened with a fierce look in his eyes. "Believe it or not, I will tear off your clothes now, and then do you on the spot." Turning his head to look at Zhang Fengjai, who had not yet completely ended his state of enlightenment, the security guard shook his head and sighed as he approached Xiao Yuxuan. Because he knew the origin of the yellow-haired young man, and he knew that his threat just now was not a joke. Pa! Facing the threat of the yellow-haired young man, Xiao Yuxuan's means of response was very simple and direct, that is, raising her jade hand and giving the other party another ear wind. "Hold her down for me." Xiao Yuxuan's second slap in the face completely ignited the yellow-haired young man's lawless and violent emotions. He immediately ordered the 2 young men with dyed hair behind him. Looking at the 2 young men approaching, Xiao Yuxuan took a few steps back without panic, then reached out to pick up the mineral water, promotional materials and some stationery on the recruitment table, and threw them at the approaching young man, and began to look for Zhang Fengjai. Due to the influence of the decorative pillars in the venue, although Xiao Yuxuan did not see Zhang Fengjai, she saw the security uncle who also had special abilities and was walking towards her, and a look of surprise immediately flashed in her eyes. When the 2 young men on the left and right were about to reach out to grab Xiao Yuxuan, the security uncle who squeezed through the crowded crowd with force, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and immediately used his martial arts skills, quickly passed through the crowd and appeared in front of Xiao Yuxuan, and then shouted at the 2 young men. "Get out!" Then, the security uncle cast his eyes on the yellow-haired young man, and said with a slightly helpless look, "Mr. Du, this girl is the girlfriend of one of my juniors." Can you forgive her offense just now for my sake? You are just an old dog guarding the door. Why should I give you face? Facing the security uncle's request, the young man called Mr. Du immediately humiliated him unhappily. Facing the naked insults of the yellow-haired young man, the security uncle, with a terrifying cold light flashing in his eyes, took a deep breath to suppress the murderous intent that kept emerging in his heart, and reminded him calmly. Mr. Du, didn't Mr. Du tell you that there is a senior among the security guards of the talent building who needs your respect? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan-Yun Yuchi. Chapter 353. Talent Building, on the second floor of the recruitment venue. After hearing the reminder from the middle-aged security guard in front of him, the yellow-haired young man recalled a little, then pointed at him with a look of sudden enlightenment on his face. So you are the Nine-Dao Genren known as the Ghost Talisman. The yellow-haired young man's strange name for the security uncle almost made the young job seekers around laugh out loud. Because the names of Ghost Talisman and Nine-Dao Genren only appear in fantasy and fairy online novels, hearing such names in reality is both cute and very funny. But after hearing the name from the yellow-haired young man, the security uncle secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Then, when he bowed his hands and planned to continue to ask for Xiao Yuxuan with the identity of his family's casual cultivator, the yellow-haired young man suddenly took out an exquisite black rag doll and threatened with a sneer. Master Judeo, since you know my grandfather, you must know his strength and methods, as well as the extent of his doting on me. If you don't want to be haunted by the evil spirits, and don't want to be hunted down by my grandfather, you can stay where you want now. Whether it was the naked threat of the yellow-haired young man or the black rag doll in his hand, the security uncle felt angry, but his eyes showed fear and helplessness. Because the grandfather of the yellow-haired young man was a powerful existence that he dared not provoke. The black rag doll in the hands of the yellow-haired young man was an evil spirit that he could not deal with. At this moment, he was suddenly caught in a dilemma. After all, Xiao Yuxuan was Zhang Fenjai's woman. Zhang Fenjai was the only blood relative of Taoist Wuxin, and Taoist Wuxin was the savior of him and his family. He could not sit idly by. Seeing that Judeo Genren continued to stand in front of the girl, the yellow-haired young man with a flash of impatience in his eyes immediately ordered the two young men who had just been driven away by Judeo Genren. Du Qing, Du Sheng, catch that stinky woman for me. Although the middle-aged security guard in front of them exuded an aura that made them feel afraid, when they thought of the violent temper of the yellow-haired young man and the terrifying old man behind him who was like a smiling tiger, Du Qing and Du Sheng couldn't help but shudder, and then hurriedly stepped forward to continue approaching Xiao Yuxuan. Looking at Du Qing and Du Sheng reaching out to grab Xiao Yuxuan, thinking that if there was no Wu Xi and Taoist, there would be no continuation of their family behind them, Judeo Genren, whose gratitude eventually defeated fear, finally decided to help. But at this moment, a figure as fast as a gust of wind instantly grabbed Du Qing and Du Sheng's wrists, and then the sound of bones breaking immediately rang out in the silent recruitment venue. Crack! Along with the sound of bones breaking crisply, Du Qing and Du Sheng's faces were distorted and their extremely miserable howls. Ah! Ah! Yezi! Seeing Zhang Fenjai appear in time and cripple Du Qing and Du Sheng, Xiao Yuxuan's eyes suddenly turned red with excitement, and then she threw herself into his arms, which immediately made countless men around her look envious and jealous. After all, a beautiful woman like Xiao Yuxuan, who has a peerless appearance and a perfect figure, is a woman that all men at the scene dream of getting. However, when they saw Du Qing and Du Sheng squatting on the ground and howling with their wrists held, the envy and jealousy in their eyes were instantly replaced by fear and fear. After releasing the two crushed wrists, Zhang Fenjai gently patted Xiao Yuxuan's shoulder and asked, "Yuxuan, what happened?" Sudden enlightenment will make the whole person fall into an unconscious state, and have no idea of what is happening in the outside world. Therefore, Zhang Fengjai knew nothing about the conflict between Xiao Yuxuan and the yellow-haired young man, and did not know how the yellow-haired young man offended Xiao Yuxuan. Yezi, he not only flirted with me secretly just now, but also made indecent moves behind me. Xiao Yuxuan pointed at the yellow-haired young man with disgust in her eyes, explaining the reason for the conflict just now. Although he had clearly rejected Xiao Yuxuan's affection, the selfishness flowing in the bones of men made Zhang Fengjai regard Xiao Yuxuan as his woman long ago. Unless Xiao Yuxuan fell in love with other men in the future, otherwise, any man who dared to flirt with her would be a provocation and humiliation to his dignity. After signaling Xiao Yuxuan to temporarily leave his arms, Zhang Fengjai turned around and looked at the yellow-haired young man with fierce eyes, threatening in a gloomy tone. "Boy, either kneel down and kowtow to my woman to apologize, or I will directly cripple your arm that you flirted with just now." Ha ha. Facing Zhang Fengjai's gloomy threat, the yellow-haired young man suddenly laughed up to the sky. After laughing for a full 10 seconds, the yellow-haired young man suddenly stopped laughing and threatened in the same tone. "Boy, kowtow to me and apologize immediately, then hand over your woman obediently, otherwise, I will let you experience a feeling worse than death." The yellow-haired young man should know his own strength by crushing the wrist bones of Du Qing and Du Sheng at a speed as fast as the wind. In this case, the other party not only did not have the slightest fear, but threatened him rampantly, which made Zhang Fengjai slightly puzzled, and subconsciously looked at the black rag doll in his hand. This is a child evil spirit refined from the resentful souls of 9 pairs of boys and girls. When Zhang Fengjai saw the scarlet eyes and slightly raised corners of the black doll's mouth, his expression changed slightly as he pointed out the origin of the black doll. "Yezi, what is a child evil spirit?" Xiao Yuxuan, who had long felt that the black doll was a little scary, asked hurriedly. The surprised eyes that focused on the black doll shifted to the yellow-haired young man, and Zhang Fengjai explained with a cold light in his eyes. "Yuxuan, the so-called child evil spirits are made from the souls of 9 pairs of boys and girls who were about to be born but died unexpectedly. Because they did not come into the world smoothly, the soul consciousness of the babies will produce a trace of resentment. At the same time, they will be nourished by the pure innate energy in the mother's body, and the souls of the babies will become very powerful. If the mothers who gave birth to them feel guilty and sad because of losing their children, then they will eliminate the resentment in their souls and wait for the opportunity to reincarnate again. If the mothers who gave birth to them are cold-blooded and ruthless without any guilt or sadness, then they will use their powerful souls to cast curses. The consequences of the curse range from lifelong infertility to suicide due to nightmares. But if an evil cultivator extracts their souls and then uses evil secret methods to fuse resentment and innate energy, then they will become very terrifying and cruel child evil spirits." The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 354. Talent Building, on the second floor of the recruitment venue. When Zhang Fengjai heard the detailed introduction of the black doll, except for some white-haired old men who showed anger and intolerance in their eyes, all the young and middle-aged people showed contempt and disdain in their eyes. Even some freshly graduated college students who firmly believed in science were planning to show up and rebuke him. Rebuke his just nonsense and refute the futile superstition he preached. Fortunately, the deterrent force formed by Zhang Fengjai's strong destruction of Du Qing and Du Sheng's wrists just now made them suppress the impulse to rebuke and refute. However, the yellow-haired young man with a special background was very surprised that Zhang Fengjai could recognize the origin of the black doll at a glance and knew the specific refining process, and immediately guessed that he might be a casual cultivator from the same family as Judeo Genren. Therefore, the yellow-haired young man, who felt that he had guessed Zhang Fengjai's identity as a casual cultivator, instantly replaced the surprised look in his eyes with pride, and pointed at Judeo Genren and reminded him. "Boy, before asking me to kneel down and kowtow to apologize, it is best to ask the security uncle next to you, who is known as the Ghost Talisman, about my origins, and then decide whether to take back what you just said. After hearing the yellow-haired young man's reminder, Zhang Fengjai looked at the security uncle with a questioning look in his eyes. Zhang Xiao, his grandfather is the Black Tiger Genren, known as the Smiling Old Man, and is also the most powerful evil cultivator in Ningji City. His cultivation has reached the peak of the 7th level of foundation building. After hearing the introduction of the security uncle, Zhang Fengjai, who had a life-saving trump card in his hand, was not too afraid. However, what he didn't quite understand was that since the Smiling Old Man was a powerful evil cultivator in the foundation building realm, why didn't he let his grandson practice evil ways? After all, the evil way is also a kind of cultivation way. Not only can it master powerful power, but it can also impact the golden elixir road known as the immortal god. Friend Zhang, in addition to the evil way cultivation of the 7th level peak realm, the Black Tiger Master is also a master of the art of Fuxi Bagua calculation. After hearing Zhang Fengjai's question, the security uncle couldn't help but explain with a wry smile. In fact, the reason why he didn't dare to take action against the yellow-haired youth just now was not because he was completely afraid of the black doll in the other party's hand. Although the evil spirits of the children refined by using the resentful souls of 9 pairs of boys and girls are very powerful, he has a large number of top talismans in his hands. He can use the talismans to temporarily trap the evil spirits of the children, and then kill the yellow-haired youth who has no strength with thunder. But what about after killing the yellow-haired youth? With the Fuxi Bagua calculation method that the Smiling Old Man is proficient in, it is not difficult to lock his whereabouts. Then, in the next few days, he will either be killed directly by the Smiling Old Man, or he will be on the run and hide. I understand. When the security uncle mentioned that the Smiling Old Man was a Taoist master who was proficient in Fuxi Bagua calculation, Zhang Fengjai knew why he didn't train his grandson to be an evil master. It's not that he doesn't want to, but that he can't. Because the Smiling Old Man is probably like his third grandfather, who leaked too many secrets about the secrets of heaven when he was young, and finally suffered the retribution of cause and effect. However, the Smiling Old Man did not have the powerful strength of the third grandfather's Taoist magic, and he did not have relatives who were proficient in medicine and martial arts to help him, so he could not use secret methods to change the fate of the yellow-haired young man. So, in order to keep the only bloodline, the yellow-haired young man could only be an ordinary person. Boy, have you thought it through? After seeing the 9 Taoists explain the origin and strength of his grandfather in detail, the yellow-haired young man immediately threatened proudly. Do you want me to continue to kowtow and apologize, or do you obediently hand over the girl to me now? Faced with the threat of the yellow-haired young man, Zhang Fengjai's response was very simple, that is, to mobilize the innate Yuanli given by his second grandfather, and then with the strength of steel and iron bones, he directly swung a powerful fist wind and blasted the child evil spirit in the yellow-haired young man's hand. When the child evil spirit forcibly broke free from the yellow-haired young man's palm, it quickly retreated, and its mouth, which was sewn shut, suddenly opened and laughed strangely. Ha ha! Accompanied by the strange laughter that made countless people at the scene feel numbed, the child evil spirit quickly split into 18 black rag dolls that looked exactly the same, but actually had subtle gender differences. At this time, the young and middle-aged people who had once severely despised Zhang Fengjai's introduction to the origin of the black rag dolls showed an unbelievable look in their eyes. At this moment, the young man who originally intended to rebuke and refute him for promoting feudal superstition, looked at the 18 black dolls in silence, with a look of shock and confusion in his eyes. Some young girls at the scene reached out and touched their stomachs, with a look of fear and regret in their eyes. Because they suddenly remembered that Zhang Fengjai had mentioned the curse and revenge of infants who died in infancy when introducing the production process of Tongyi Shaling. Facing the 18 black dolls that were quickly split out of Tongyi Shaling, Zhang Fengjai flashed a disdainful sneer in his eyes and retracted the iron fist he had just swung. But the boxing wind that was blasted out also split into 18 identical fist winds, which hit the 18 black dolls directly at lightning speed. Ah, ah, ah. Accompanied by 18 piercing screams, the 18 black rag dolls hit by the palm wind emitted a puff of black smoke, fell to the ground in unison, and then quickly returned to their original exquisite black rag dolls. More than once, the black rag dolls have formed an omnipotent belief in the yellow-haired young man's heart by using the evil spirit of the child to deal with those who dared to take risks. Now, when he saw that the black rag doll with full power was destroyed by a punch from the thin boy in front of him, the instant collapse of his belief made him dumbfounded. And the countless job seekers at the scene, the male eyes showed shock and jealousy, and the female eyes showed shock and envy. And the young girls who just touched their stomachs showed a look of desire in their eyes. Only the security uncle's eyes showed a worried look, and he quietly took out a talisman left by the family elders. Because he knew that the moment the evil spirit of Tong was killed, the smiling old man who had telepathy with the evil spirit would definitely arrive in the shortest time possible and then take forceful action against Zhang Fenjai. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 355. Talent Building, on the second floor of the recruitment venue. Without paying attention to the shocked reactions of the crowd, Zhang Fenjai took out a fire talisman from his sleeve that was used to transform the Feng Shui formation, and used his agility to drive the talisman to self-ignite and throw it at the black rag doll. But just as the talisman flame was about to fall on the black rag doll, the eyes that had returned to black were suddenly replaced by scarlet, and the short arm slapped the ground hard, using the force of the slap to fly into the air to avoid the talisman flame, and then landed steadily on the ground. The sudden resurrection of the black rag doll also scared the countless job seekers who had just surrounded the scene, and they immediately retreated in panic. Fortunately, Zhang Fenjai, who had just shown his strong strength and killed the black rag doll, was also at the scene. Therefore, the panic scene quickly calmed down, and there was no accidental trampling casualties, which also made the building leaders who also rushed to the second floor secretly relieved. After reaching out to call back the burning flame of the spell, Zhang Fenjai stroked his arm, which had only consumed 1/3 of his innate vitality, and asked calmly with his head down. "I guess you are the Black Tiger Master known as the Smiling Old Man." "Yes." The black rag doll walked to the front of the yellow-haired young man and raised his head to admit it. However, he seemed to hate the feeling of being looked down upon. His delicate and small feet suddenly kicked hard, and he landed nearly 2 meters in the air on the shoulders of the yellow-haired young man, with a hint of arrogance in his expression. "Boy, I don't care whether you are a casual cultivator from your family or a Taoist section. If you dare to destroy the evil spirit of the child that I have worked so hard to refine, you will have to bear the consequences of pulling out your tendons, peeling off your skin, and your soul will be scattered." "Old man, some time ago, there was a guy at the peak of the 6th level of Foundation building who said exactly the same thing to you, but do you know what his final result was?" Facing the arrogant judgment of the Black Tiger Master, Zhang Fenjai asked with a slight smile on his face. Facing Zhang Fenjai's slightly contemptuous questioning, the black rag doll possessed by the consciousness of the old man Black Tiger turned his head away, showing an attitude of not wanting to answer at all. In response, Zhang Fenjai did not care at all and took the initiative to give an answer. "That guy's little heart was directly pierced by the sharp sword condensed by my spiritual power." At this point, Zhang Fenjai mobilized the spiritual power in his dantian to quickly condense a sharp sword, and at the same time, his right foot suddenly stepped forward and pointed the sword at the black rag doll, threatening with a sharp look. "When the sky is crazy, there will be rain, and when people are crazy, there will be disasters. Master Black Tiger, retreat quickly is your only way to survive. Otherwise, your soul will be scattered and your final destination will be." Haha. Facing Zhang Fenjai's seemingly arrogant threat, the black rag doll possessed by Master Black Tiger suddenly laughed up to the sky. At the same time, the same rampant laughter came from outside the building. "Young friend Zhang, be careful, The real body of Black Tiger is coming quickly. Hearing the laughter outside the building getting closer and louder, the security uncle's face changed slightly and he hurriedly reminded in a low voice. "Uncle, don't worry, I have my own way to deal with it." After turning his head and smiling to comfort the security uncle, Zhang Fengjai looked through the double-layer tempered glass window at the black shadow rushing in like a gust of wind outside the building. When the black shadow quickly arrived at the front yard of the building and entered the recruitment venue through the automatic sensor door, Zhang Fengjai frowned slightly. Because the white-haired old man who came quickly gave him a vague feeling that was inexplicable and very awkward. With a light touch of his right foot on the smooth ground, the white-haired old man directly jumped over the fence nearly 5 meters in the air and appeared in the recruitment venue on the second floor. Then, the black rag doll standing on the shoulder of the yellow-haired young man, after the scarlet eyes were replaced by black again, lost consciousness and fell backwards. But no matter the white-haired old man standing next to him or the yellow-haired young man who had awakened from his daze, neither of them reached out to catch the black rag doll, letting it fall heavily on the hard tile floor. For some reason, when Xiao Yuxuan saw the abandoned black rag doll fall heavily on the ground, she suddenly felt a little distressed, as if the black rag doll was a pet with its own life, but was ruthlessly abandoned. "Hey, I seem to have seen this old man somewhere." Just as the white-haired old man landed steadily on the second floor venue and clearly showed his demeanor, a young job seeker at the scene frowned slightly and asked his companion. "How can a young man have such a bad memory? Isn't he Uncle Du who runs a daily necessities supermarket in Miaoying village?" The young man's companion first complained, and then directly pointed out the origin of the white-haired old man. "It turned out to be you." When Zhang Fengjai heard the job seeker just now pointed out that the white-haired old man in front of him was from Miaoying village, he immediately knew the reason why he felt awkward in his heart. When he first arrived in Ningji City, he tracked down the murderer's rental in Miaoying village because of the lost bank card, and accidentally discovered that Du Ying, who stole the bank card, was killed. In order to recondense the image of the murderer from the remaining thoughts of the murdered Du Ying, Yang Guozheng sent the young criminal policeman Qi Bingguan to buy the items he used to set up the secret method of summoning souls. At that time, according to Qi Bingguan's face, when he calculated that the other party had a blood disaster falling from the sky, he specially reminded the other party to retreat when encountering water. But in the end, a white-haired old man who was proficient in Taoism took action to destroy the blood disaster he calculated and the method of avoiding the disaster. The white-haired old man who destroyed the calculation of the magic was the Black Tiger Master in front of him, which was the real reason why he felt awkward. The thin young man in front of him suddenly showed a look of sudden enlightenment, which made Black Tiger Master frown slightly, but he did not dwell too much on the other party's strange reaction, but turned his head to ask the yellow-haired young man the reason for the conflict. After learning the specific cause of the conflict, Black Tiger Master looked at Zhang Fengjai unhappily and asked in a nonchalant tone. "Boy, my grandson just touched the girl's buttocks and did a little indecent behavior. You have to cripple my 2 descendants and destroy the treasures that I have worked so hard to refine." The bloody disaster that destroyed his own calculations almost made Qi Bingguan die, which violated the taboos among monks and was a naked provocation. Now, the fault of the other party's grandson molesting his woman was actually pushed to himself by him, which made Zhang Fengjai furious and his reply seemed rude. "Old man, if I touched your wife's private parts and did something indecent in front of her, would you just laugh it off?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 356. Talent Building, on the second floor of the recruitment venue. "You little bastard, you're looking for death." He dared to humiliate his dead wife. This made Master Haihu's face suddenly change. He shouted sharply and at the same time waved a delicate cyanwood carving. The cyanwood sculpture, which was originally only 3 or 4 centimeters in height, grew in the wind and turned into a ferocious wooden giant about 2.5 meters tall, and then slapped Zhang Fengjai with his giant palm. The Taoist ancestors of the Sanqing dynasty showed their magical powers, and the golden armored thunder god subdued demons. Facing the wooden giant attacking with his palm, Zhang Fengjai was preparing to mobilize his innate vitality without any panic, when the security guard behind him suddenly threw out a charm, then pinched his hand and chanted a spell. When a golden armored giant, also 2.5 meters tall, blocked the wooden giant's attack, the security guard reminded him solemnly, "Little friend Zhang, let me deal with the evil spirit of Musha. You should concentrate on using your life-saving trump card to deal with Master Black Tiger. To deal with the evil spirit refined with the energy of resentment, evil would be to directly offend Master Black Tiger, who has reached the peak of the 7th level of foundation building." The security uncle's help at the critical moment made Zhang Fengjai feel grateful immediately. Nodded. Immediately afterwards, he directly mobilized the innate vitality in his arms, integrated it into the physical strength of steel and iron bones, and then used the fist taught by his second grandfather to determine the universe. "Jujhen, you dare to help this damn boy, then don't blame me." Seeing the security uncle using top-notch talismans to transform the golden armor giant to resist the attack of the evil spirit, Master Black Tiger suddenly became angry and threatened. But before he finished his threatening words, he was startled by Zhang Fengjai's punch. Because from the palm wind created by the boxing technique, he not only felt the fatal danger, but also clearly sensed the innate vitality of the martial arts and spiritual realm. After the shocked look in his eyes was instantly replaced by a trace of reluctance, Master Black Tiger took out an old colored talisman from his arms. Soul Transfer Talisman for Death. When he saw the talisman that Master Haihu took out, the security uncle's expression changed slightly and he quickly reminded Zhang Fengjai loudly. "Zhang Xiao, this is a soul-moving talisman that can be used to replace the body to bear the power of attacks. Don't waste your precious life-saving trump card." The security uncle's introduction and reminder of the talisman made Master Black Tiger's eyes flash with a strong murderous cold light. He immediately bit the tip of his tongue and spit out his heart blood, spraying it directly on the soul-moving talisman for death. Zhang Fengjai, who was not inferior to the security uncle in his practice of talismans, did not change his attack method because of his reminder and continued to use all his strength to punch the world. Graft. Seeing the rapid punching wind, Master Black Tiger quickly threw out the talisman in his hand and shouted loudly. Accompanied by Master Black Tiger's roar, the spell immediately erupted into a burst of white smoke. Immediately afterwards, the white smoke quickly condensed into a slightly illusory black tiger, and then violently collided with the fist wind formed by the boxing technique. 1 second. No, it was only 1/5 of a second. The black tiger master transformed by the talisman was directly smashed into powder by the fist wind. Then the palm wind, whose power was only weakened by 1/3, continued to blast towards the black tiger master. This is the innate vitality cultivated by those who have reached the realm of spiritual mastery in martial arts. The black tiger soul transformation talisman that was blended with the blood of his heart had nearly 80% of the original body's strength, which meant he had the cultivation level at the early stage of the 7th level of foundation building. With such a powerful talisman, not only could it not be resisted for even a second, but it also only consumed 1/3 of the power of the punch. This made the security guard scream in shock. Compared to the shock of the security guard, Master Haihu felt endless panic and despair in the face of the palm wind that continued to hit. The white hair on his head is just because he stayed in a dark environment for a long time to practice, and it does not mean that his lifespan has come to an end. With his evil cultivation at the peak of the 7th level of foundation building, he still has at least 40 or 50 years of life. With the help of strange and unpredictable magic, he can easily obtain inexhaustible and huge wealth. Relying on the physical body nourished by Yuan Li, he can still achieve strong combat effectiveness for half an hour 2 to 3 times a day in that regard. Therefore, he did not want to lose his life of continuing to enjoy glory and wealth, so he could only reach out frantically and push the yellow-haired young man, asking his grandson to temporarily resist the attack of Zhongfeng for him. Immediately afterwards, he hit his chest with his right fist suddenly and forcefully, spitting out 3 drops of his life essence and blood. Master Black Tiger's heart-rending behavior was beyond the expectations of everyone present. Even the yellow-haired young man who was the person involved did not expect that his grandfather would be so cruel. The violent and rebellious character, as well as the strong body tempered by various medicinal materials since childhood, allowed the yellow-haired young man to instantly burst out with unimaginable potential at the critical moment of life and death oppression, and even managed to escape the attack of the fist wind. The yellow-haired young man was lucky enough to save his life, but without encountering any obstruction, the palm wind quickly blasted towards Master Black Tiger, who was rapidly forming seals with his fingers, intending to use his life essence and blood to perform secret techniques. Little beast, you! Seeing that his own grandson did not have the filial piety to sacrifice his life for him at the critical moment, which caused the secret method he used to save his life to fail to be used smoothly, Master Haihu immediately shouted angrily. But before he could finish his scolding, he was hit hard by the fist wind, and then the whole person flew into the air like a kite with a broken string, and directly jumped over the fence on the 2nd floor and fell to the hard marble floor of the 1st floor hall. However, just when Black Tiger Master was about to fall to the marble floor, a figure suddenly jumped down from the 2nd floor of the recruitment venue and caught Black Tiger Master. And the person who suddenly came to his rescue was Zhang Fengjai, who had knocked him away. He stretched out his hand to catch Black Tiger Master, who slowly fell to the marble floor, and then 3 Taoist silver needles appeared in his hand instantly, piercing his eyebrows, heart, and abdomen dantian respectively. Then, he took out 5 ordinary silver needles from his sleeves, and used the acupuncture method of Xiangui 13 needles to pierce the 5 fatal acupuncture points that stimulated the potential of the flesh. Little friend Zhang, what are you doing? Seeing Zhang Fengjai using the lost 13 mysterious ghost needles and the silver needle acupuncture method to stop the loss of Black Tiger Master's vitality, stabilize the constantly collapsing dantian, and stimulate the heart that was about to stop beating, the security uncle who jumped to the 1st floor lobby immediately showed a puzzled look in his eyes. For the time being, Zhang Fengjai, who had used the 13 mysterious ghost needles, did not answer the security uncle's question. After performing the 13 mysterious ghost needles, he stretched out his hand and placed it on Black Tiger Master's wrist, using the pulse-checking method to check the situation of the rescue just now. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 357. Talent Building, 1st Floor Lobby. After using the pulse diagnosis technique to confirm that Black Tiger Immortal was not in danger of death for the time being, Zhang Fengjai breathed a sigh of relief, then turned to the security uncle to explain the reason why he had just rescued Black Tiger Immortal. In fact, whether it was when he first arrived in Ningji City, the other party secretly attacked to destroy the blood disaster calculated by his magic, or the fierce fight just now because Xiao Yuxuan was teased by the yellow-haired young man, which led to both sides using their life-saving trump cards, all determined that the final outcome between them was either you die or I live. However, the job fair with more than 10,000 people and the fierce conflict that broke out in public would affect the final result of the fight, that is, there must be no casualties. Otherwise, he would not be able to get rid of the suspicion of national legal sanctions, even though he and Black Tiger Immortal were both Taoist monks, and even though he had a close relationship with Zhuang Jian from the Supernatural Research Institute. After all, there are all kinds of people in the world. No one can guarantee that among the more than 10,000 job seekers and staff on the scene, there will be people who, out of envy, jealousy, and hatred, will use online violence to create social public opinion and affect the final direction of the situation. Therefore, in order to avoid unpredictable changes, he will catch Black Tiger Master at the last critical moment, and use the silver needle to seal the acupoints and the mysterious ghost 13 needles to temporarily save the other party's life. Of course, the rescue just now was only temporary. He could not bury fatal hidden dangers for himself and his relatives and friends around him because of the influence of social public opinion. After all, Black Tiger Master is not only an evil cultivator at the peak of the 7th level of Foundation building, but also a narrow-minded person nicknamed the Smiling Old Man, and a master of the art of Fuxibagua. Therefore, the acupointment sealing method performed by the Taoist silver needle just now can only barely maintain the integrity of the dantian and heart. The moment the Taoist silver needle left his body was when the dantian completely collapsed and the heart shattered instantly. At the same time, the infinite potential stimulated by the mysterious ghost 13 needles just now actually overdrawn the remaining vitality of Black Tiger Master. Even if his dantian and heart were intact, the lifespan of Black Tiger Master would only last 1 day and 1 night at most, which was enough for him to get rid of all suspicion. After hearing Zhang Fenjai's detailed explanation and cautious approach, the security uncle secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and a look of relief and appreciation flashed in his eyes. After all, talent and potential are only the foundation of cultivation, and being cautious and thorough is the key to survival. Looking up at Xiao Yuxuan standing in front of the fence on the 2nd floor, Zhang Fenjai quietly gave her a look to leave, and took the lead to walk towards the automatic induction door. However, just as the automatic induction door was opened, a police car with flashing red and blue lights quickly stopped in the front yard of the building. Then, 5 uniformed policemen got out of the police car, and then they quickly rushed into the lobby on the 1st floor of the building. Then, a middle-aged police officer who was obviously the leader asked loudly with a sharp look, "Who called the police just now?" "It was me." Just as the middle-aged police officer's voice of questioning fell, a young man standing in front of the fence on the 2nd floor quickly stretched out his hand to signal. Then, the young man who called the police ran to the middle-aged police officer through the stairs, and pointed at Zhang Fenjai, the security uncle and the Black Tiger Taoist who had just stood up and said, "Officer, they were the ones who were fighting and almost caused a mass trampling incident." When they heard the specific reasons for the young man's report and the slander with the inversion of right and wrong, whether it was Zhang Fenjai and the security uncle, or the Black Tiger Taoist who had completely lost his evil cultivation, a terrifying cold light flashed in their eyes. "Tell me, why did you fight and make trouble just now?" the middle-aged police officer asked seriously, motioning a young policeman behind him to record the case. "Uncle policeman, I am just a job seeker who came to find a job. I have not had any conflicts with anyone, let alone fighting and making trouble." Shrugging his shoulders, Zhang Fenjai sneered at the young man and cried out with grievance. "As for the mass trampling incident, it is nonsense that has never happened. Officer, I am the security guard of the building property, responsible for maintaining order at the scene. I can guarantee that there was no fight just now." The security uncle quickly stood up and guaranteed. "I am just accompanying my grandson to find a job. How can I have the leisure to fight and make trouble?" First, he winked at the yellow-haired young man and the brothers Du Qing and Du Sheng standing in front of the fence on the 2nd floor, and the real Black Tiger also denied it with a calm expression. The 3 people who were identified denied that there was a fight just now, which made the middle-aged police officer look at the young man with doubts in his eyes. "You are lying." Facing the questioning eyes of the middle-aged police officer, the young man who called the police had a flash of panic in his eyes, and then he quickly accused Zhang Fenjai and others, and then looked up at the job seekers and staff who were surrounded by the fence and shouted for help. "You must have witnessed the conflict just now, and you also know the specific reasons for their conflict, so please come out to help me testify and prove that I really didn't lie just now." But in the face of the young man's panicked request for help, whether it was the job seekers who came to find a job or the staff of the building, they either pretended to be blind or turned a blind eye away from the fence, which gradually replaced the panic in the young man's eyes with despair. However, When he saw the camera in the corner of the hall, he seemed to have grabbed a life-saving straw and hurriedly suggested to the middle-aged police officer. "Officer, if you don't believe what I said just now, we can go to the monitoring room to check the camera video, and then we can prove my innocence. In fact, in the process of fighting, as long as there are no casualties, no adverse social impact, and the two parties in conflict choose to reconcile privately afterwards, basically you can turn a blind eye and choose to close the case." So, seeing that the young man was still unwilling to give up, the middle-aged police officer also warned with a hint of displeasure in his heart. "Young man, do you know what the consequences of reporting a false case and affecting the police's handling of the case are?" "Officer, you have to believe me, I really didn't report a false case just now." The warning of the middle-aged police officer made the young man feel a little terrified, and at the same time, he was more determined to use the means of checking the surveillance to prove his innocence. So, while he tried his best to explain himself, he looked for the location of the surveillance room. Finally, he saw the surveillance room on the north side of the hall near the bathroom, with the door marked as a restricted area of the computer room and no entry for outsiders. Then, he turned around and ran straight to the surveillance room, leaving the middle-aged police officer behind. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan-Yun Yuchi. Chapter 358. Talent Building, First Floor Lobby. "You guys come with me." Since the situation has been forced to this point by the young man who called the police, the only thing he can do is to satisfy his wish to check the surveillance playback, so as to clear his name. So, as the middle-aged police officer walked towards the monitoring room, he turned his head and said to Zhang Fengjai and Black Tiger Jinren, who were suspected of fighting, with a serious look, "Damn it!" As he followed the middle-aged police officer to the monitoring room, Black Tiger Jinren couldn't help but curse inwardly. Because just now, after carefully checking the condition of his body through meditation and introspection, he knew that he had less than 24 hours left to live, and there was no means or hope of reviving. The desire not to die made him think of preserving himself first when facing life and death dangers, even if he had to sacrifice his only relative for this. But when he really faced the unchangeable result of death, he was able to accept it calmly, and immediately thought of the hope of the Du family's bloodline inheritance. Therefore, he was eager to take the yellow-haired youth back to Miaoying village, and then use a special evil secret method to transfer all the punishment of karma to himself, so that his grandson, the yellow-haired youth, could become an evil cultivator and escape from Ningji City with the large amount of wealth accumulated over the years. After all, he had offended the evil cultivators, scattered cultivators, and monsters in Ningji City and several surrounding counties and districts over the years by relying on his powerful evil power. If he still maintained his peak strength, no one would dare to bully and hurt his grandson. But now, those who take advantage of others' misfortunes and beat others when they are down are good at it, and they also like to do it the most. Let's go. Today, I was able to get the opportunity to achieve the state of enlightenment, thanks to the invitation and guidance of the security uncle, and I should be grateful to him both emotionally and rationally. Therefore, Zhang Fengjai originally planned to take advantage of the lunch break to treat the security uncle to a good meal, and he didn't care whether he would continue to delay time. He took the initiative to hold Xiao Yuxuan's hand, and then followed the middle-aged police officer and walked towards the monitoring room, whose door was forcibly opened by the young man who called the police. In the monitoring room, in addition to the young man who called the police just now and the young man in charge of monitoring, there were actually two beautiful girls with stunning looks sitting on the sofa. When they saw the middle-aged police officer, Black Tiger Jinren, Zhang Fengjai, and Xiao Yuxuan entering the monitoring room, the two beautiful girls quickly stood up and showed off their proud devilish figures. However, one of the beautiful girls looked at Xiao Yuxuan with a look of appreciation and fascination. Perhaps because there were too many beauties around him, he had become immune to beauty and figure. After just a glance at the two beautiful girls, his eyes went directly to the young man who was watching the surveillance playback screen, and carefully observed the other's face. Because he really couldn't understand why the other party deliberately slandered and framed him when he and the young man who called the police didn't know each other and there was no personal grudge between them. Among the three wheels of the two airs, the sky wheel is thick, the human wheel is outward, and the earth wheel is short and narrow, indicating that the other party is a soft-eared person who listens to one side and believes in one side. The Tianzai palace above the eyes is narrow and dim, indicating that the other party is a very jealous person. The life palace in the middle of the eyebrows is black and red, indicating that the other party is a very unstable person. According to the other party's face, combined with his secret observation of Xiao Yuxuan's behavior just now, Zhang Fengjai vaguely guessed that the reason why the other party slandered and framed him was probably related to his inability to control his jealousy and the secret instigation of some people. However, when he was about to retract his attention, he unexpectedly saw that the other party's forehead suddenly turned black, which meant that the young man who deliberately slandered and framed him was about to encounter a bloody disaster of life and death. But the other party's life and death had nothing to do with him, so he was too lazy to remind the other party. This is impossible. Just when Zhang Fengjai retracted his attention to the young man's face, the staff responsible for debugging the monitoring also successfully found all the cameras in the recruitment venue on the second floor and played back the scene of the conflict just now. But what was the result? Not only was there no footage of Zhang Fengjai, the security guard and the black tiger real person clashing, but even the black doll had disappeared from the surveillance footage for a while, which made the young man unable to believe it at all, and he could not accept the reality. He shook his head vigorously to deny it, and a look of despair gradually appeared in his eyes. Because he suddenly thought of the warning from the middle-aged police officer just now, and realized that he had committed a heinous crime and that he needed to bear the legal responsibility. "Come with us." There were no witnesses who came forward to testify for him, and there were no footage of Zhang Fengjai and others fighting in the surveillance, which fully proved that the young man had just lied about the case and slandered others. Therefore, the middle-aged police officer, who was in a very bad mood, immediately shouted with a serious face. The middle-aged police officer's serious shouting made the young man shudder, and the look of despair in his eyes was instantly replaced by madness. Then, he directly reached out and picked up the scissors used for cutting paper on the table, and rushed to the sofa in 3 or 2 steps. Then, he stretched out his hand to clamp a beautiful girl's neck, pointed the scissors in his hand directly at her heart, and then threatened the middle-aged police officer with a ferocious look. "Get out of here, all of you, get out of the room, otherwise, I will kill her." Tian Tian. Seeing her companion being held hostage, the other beautiful girl panicked and instinctively wanted to step forward to grab the scissors, but was kicked away by the sharp-eyed young man. "Be careful." Seeing the girl being kicked away, her head was heading straight for the sharp corner of an iron box. Zhang Fengjai shouted a warning, and quickly let go of Xiao Yuxuan's jade hand, flashed behind the beautiful girl, and stretched out his hand to hug her waist tightly to avoid the tragedy. However, facing Zhang Fengjai who rescued her, the beautiful girl not only did not show the slightest gratitude, but struggled to break free from the arm around her waist, and showed a very disgusted look in her eyes. In this regard, Zhang Fengjai scratched his head in confusion, because he did not do anything rude just now. "Young man, don't be impulsive, let's talk it over, and don't hurt that innocent girl." Originally, the middle-aged police officer thought it was just an ordinary fight, so he didn't carry a pistol with him. Therefore, when faced with a sudden kidnapping case, he could only comfort the young man not to be impulsive, while gesturing to his colleague who was responsible for recording the case behind him, asking him to leave the room first and contact the criminal police. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 359. Talent Building, Inside the Monitoring Room. I'll count to 3. If you haven't gotten out of the room yet, I'll kill her right away. The scissors against the heart stabbed slightly, and the beautiful girl who was held hostage screamed softly, which made the middle-aged police officer immediately nervous and ordered everyone at the scene. Go out, everyone, go out for the time being. However, facing the middle-aged police officer's order, Zhang Fengjai, Black Tiger Master and another beautiful girl did not move at all. Do you want to do it, or do I? Black Tiger Master shook his head and asked with a hint of excitement. Turning his head and looking at Black Tiger Master with a strange smile in his eyes, Zhang Fengjai vaguely guessed that he should want to force the young man to commit a heinous crime by forcing him to stab the girl to death, so that the young man would suffer both psychological and physical torture and eventually accept the most severe punishment of the law. Although this punishment method can retaliate the young man's slander and frame up to the greatest extent, it will cost the life of a young and beautiful girl. He felt reluctant and stretched out his hand to block He Huzhen, and then said indifferently, "Let me do it." Seeing a trace of pity flashing in Zhang Fengjai's eyes, He Huzhen nodded in agreement with an indifferent look, but secretly breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Because this shows that Zhang Fengjai is not a narrow-minded, sinister villain who will take revenge for every grievance, so there is no need to worry that the other party will continue to retaliate against him next. In this way, he can also safely perform the evil secret method and successfully complete the hope of continuing the only bloodline of the Du family. Taking a deep breath, mobilizing the spiritual power of Danshan to directly perform the Qingfeng step, before the other party has reacted, Zhang Fengjai has already grabbed the other party's left wrist holding the scissors tightly. Ah! The severe pain caused by the continuous crushing of the wrist bones made the young man howl in pain, and he had to let go of the arm that was tightly clamped around the beautiful girl, which also saved the beautiful girl with a pale face. "Tian Tian, are you okay?" Another beautiful girl rushed to the rescued girl in 3 or 2 steps, and asked with worry and tenderness in her eyes. "Sister Tong Tong, I'm fine." Tian Tian, who hugged the other's arms directly, replied in a soft voice. Seeing the 2 beautiful girls hugging each other tightly, except for Xiao Yuxuan's slightly strange eyes, all the other men showed a trace of pity and excitement in their eyes. Because of the intimate behavior of the 2 beautiful girls just now, they immediately thought of a name for special people, Lily. Fortunately, the sound of the young man's painful howling quickly interrupted the fantasy of several men at the scene. The middle-aged police officer immediately rushed to Zhang Fengjai's side, then took out a pair of cold handcuffs and handcuffed the young man's arms behind his back. "Young man, 2 girls, I'll trouble you to follow me to the police station to make a record of the incident." "No problem." Zhang Fengjai nodded in cooperation. The 2 beautiful girls also nodded without objection. "Yuxuan, go and book a high-end restaurant for me. I'm going to treat the security uncle to a meal later." Zhang Fengjai instructed Xiao Yuxuan beside him as he followed the middle-aged police officer out of the monitoring room. "I know, you pay attention to safety." Xiao Yuxuan nodded and warned him. However, just as the middle-aged police officer escorted the young man past Black Tiger Master suddenly reached out and patted the young man lightly, which immediately attracted the middle-aged police officer's sharp warning. In response, Black Tiger Master just smiled indifferently and turned his head to look at Zhang Fengjai, with a hint of expectation in his eyes. Ah! The light pat of Black Tiger Master just now actually injected a trace of yin-sha energy into the young man's body that could quickly corrode his internal organs. According to the amount and power of yin-sha energy, the young man will lose his life due to the corrosion of his internal organs in at most 24 hours. Although this means of revenge is cruel, Zhang Fengjai can barely accept it as a punishment for slandering and framing 3 monks. So, facing the expectant eyes of Black Tiger Master, he sighed and nodded. Due to the limited space in the police car and the large number of accompanying personnel, Zhang Fengjai and the 2 beautiful girls could only follow a young policeman to take a taxi to the police station. At the same time, the young policeman who was responsible for leading them needed to pay for the ride and directly chose the co-pilot seat. Therefore, Zhang Fengjai had to squeeze in the back seat with the two beautiful girls. Although he had hugged the beautiful girl who was not held hostage just now, he was completely confused by her strange behavior at that time and did not care about the smell on her body. At this moment, the limited space caused them to be close to each other, allowing him to clearly smell two different smells emanating from each other. One is the scent of light flowers, and the other is the fragrance of virgin body odor. Through the strange behavior of Tian Tian after she was rescued, Zhang Fengjai knew that the relationship between the two was a lesbian lover that could not be understood and accepted by the world. Maybe because he was a man, although he could not understand this kind of relationship that violated secular ethics, he did not dislike or oppose this kind of lesbian combination in his heart. However, the only thing he could not understand was that since the other party could expose the lesbian relationship in public, why did she keep her virginity all the time? But at this moment, Tian Tian, who was sitting in the back seat near the window, thanked him with a grateful look on her face. "Little brother, thank you for saving my life just now." "You're welcome." After waving his hand, Zhang Fengjai planned to observe the faces of the two beautiful girls carefully through the rear-view mirror of the taxi to see if he could find out the reason for their union. But to his great regret, the rear-view mirror of the taxi was broken, which made him give up the idea of observing each other's faces and turn his head to look at the scenery outside the window. Taking the small makeup mirror from Tian Tian, Bai Yuetong used the mirror to secretly observe Zhang Fengjai, who was enjoying the scenery outside the car window. The disgust in her eyes was gradually replaced by complexity. And Tian Tian, who noticed the change in Bai Yuetong's eyes, sighed and turned her head to look at the scenery outside the car. The talent building is less than 3 miles away from the Jaoksan police station, and there is only one intersection with traffic lights on the way. So, it only took 4 minutes for them to arrive at the police station smoothly. He simply recorded the cause of the kidnapping and the rescue process, and wrote his name on the interrogation record. Then he and the two beautiful girls left the police station. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 360. Outside the police station. Because he had been rejected by the other party, in order to avoid embarrassing situations, Zhang Fengjai, who left the police station, just waved to the two beautiful girls, and then turned around without saying a word and walked towards a taxi waiting for passengers by the roadside. However, just as he turned around and was about to leave, the voice of the girl who had rejected him suddenly came from behind. "Please wait a moment." "Miss, what else?" Zhang Fengjai asked puzzledly after stopping and turning around. "My name is Bai Yuetong, and her name is Lu Mengtian." After taking the initiative to introduce herself and her lover's name, Bai Yuetong looked directly into Zhang Fengjai's questioning eyes and asked. "I don't know what you should call me." "My name is Zhang Fengjai." Facing Bai Yuetong's active self-introduction, Zhang Fengjai's eyes were more puzzled, but he answered without hiding anything. "Zhang Fengjai, thank you for saving my life just now. Tian Tian and I want to treat you to a meal. I wonder if you can come." In fact, Zhang Fengjai was looking forward to the invitation from Bai Yuetong and Lu Mengtian. Firstly, being able to have a meal with two beautiful girls is a very enjoyable process for both vision and psychology. Secondly, he also wanted to use the process of eating to understand how they broke through the pressure of secular ethics and how they combined with homosexual psychological barriers. This may increase his deep cognition and understanding of human nature and help improve his own state of mind. But he had to shake his head and refuse the other party's invitation. Because when he went to the police station to register the record, he had already asked Xiao Yuxuan to book a high-end restaurant in advance to entertain the security uncle, in order to thank the other party for the opportunity of enlightenment. That's a pity. After hearing Zhang Fengjai's reason for rejecting his invitation, Bai Yuetong flashed a sigh of disappointment in his eyes, and then took out his mobile phone to indicate. "Zhang Fengjai, why don't we leave each other our contact information, so that when you are free, Tian Tian and I will treat you to a meal." "Okay." In response, Zhang Fengjai readily agreed to leave his mobile phone number, then turned around and headed for the taxi. After watching the taxi, Zhang Fengjai took slowly leave. Lu Mengtian, who held Bai Yuetong's arm, asked with a slightly worried tone. "Sister Tong, do you think this young man named Zhang Fengjai can solve the trouble we are in?" "Tian Tian, you also saw Zhang Fengjai kill the weird black doll just now, and the sword that appeared out of thin air in his hand. I guess he is very likely the legendary exorcist." After retracting her gaze that could no longer see the taxi, Bai Yuetong looked at Lu Mengtian with tenderness in her eyes, and said with a firm tone. "So, I believe he can not only solve the trouble we are in, but also investigate the reason why the trouble is entangled with us." "I hope so." Looking up at the direction where the taxi disappeared, Lu Mengtian prayed with a hint of expectation in her eyes. Fenyuan Seafood Restaurant, which is only more than 200 meters away from the Talent Building, is the most famous high-end restaurant in Ningji City and the best place to entertain relatives and friends. In the 306 private room on the third floor of Fenyuan Restaurant, Zhang Fengjai picked up a glass of nearly 3 taels of white wine and thanked him solemnly. "Uncle, the first glass of wine is to thank you for the opportunity of enlightenment, which allows the junior to successfully advance to the 9th level of qi condensation and seize the opportunity to break through the foundation building realm." Seeing Zhang Fengjai drinking the white wine in the glass in one breath, Xiao Yuxuan was worried about his health, but she was very considerate and took the initiative to fill his glass. At the same time, she also filled the glass for the security uncle, who also finished the white wine. "Uncle, the second glass of wine is for your help when Yuxuan was in trouble and when I was fighting with Black Tiger." "Uncle, the third glass of wine is a promise from the junior to you, a promise that I will go all out as long as you need it in the future." Not only did he know the talent and potential of Zhang Jiyi, but he also knew the horror and power of Wuxin Taoist behind him. So, when he heard the promise given by Zhang Fengjai, the security uncle who stood up hurriedly drank the white wine in the glass in one breath with excitement and thanked him. "Thank you, Zhang Xiao. Uncle, Yezi, sit down and eat some food quickly." 3 glasses of white wine in a row, nearly 3 taels, made Xiao Yuxuan worried that it would hurt the bodies of the two people, and she hurriedly asked them to eat quickly. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes, Xiao Yuxuan looked at the security uncle with puzzlement in her eyes and asked, "Uncle, since you and Yezi are both monks with the ability to call the wind and rain, why do you want to be a security guard in a property company with a salary of only more than 1,000 yuan? After all, Zhang Fengjai, who does nothing all day, can get a monthly salary of more than 100,000 yuan from Yongsheng Group every month. Then, with the identity and strength of the security uncle, there is no need to condescend to work in a small property company. Repay a favor." After putting down the chopsticks in his hand, the security uncle took a sip of wine from the cup and explained with a gentle expression. 5 years ago, when I was chased by my enemies and was seriously injured, I was saved by a leader named Xiao in the current building. In order to repay his life-saving grace, I decided to secretly protect him for 5 years, so I chose to be an ordinary security guard in the building. However, starting tomorrow, I will leave the building and Ningji City and return to my hometown." "Why?" Xiao Yuxuan asked hurriedly. "Alas." With a sigh, he stood up and walked to the window-sill, looking at the 4 big words on the top floor of the building. The security uncle explained with a little reluctance. "First, today is the last day of the 5-year agreement, and I have successfully completed the original agreement. Second, the job fair and the government staff in the building will all move away, and the environment for continuing to appreciate the world will be lost." When the security uncle mentioned that the job fair and staff in the building would move away, Zhang Fengjai also stood up and walked to the window-sill, then looked at the 9-story building shrouded in purple air, and asked with doubts in his eyes, "Uncle, why are you moving away? It seems that a new building with a more beautiful environment, a wider area, and better transportation conditions has been rebuilt in the new district, the security uncle, who rarely cares about the relocation of the building, answered with a tone that is not too sure. Alas! After hearing the security uncle's answer, Zhang Fengjai couldn't help but shook his head and sighed. What a pity. Zhang Xiao, what do you mean? Moving to an office building with a better environment will not only help improve the working environment, but also better serve job seekers. It can be said to be a good thing to kill two birds with one stone, so the security uncle didn't understand why Zhang Fengjai sighed with regret.